Hey guys, welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you a very powerful method for solving quadratics, the quadratic formula. And this is powerful because it can solve any quadratic. So whereas the factoring method, method 1, can sometimes fail, and just like the AC method, method 3 can sometimes fail, the quadratic formula will never fail. It can solve any quadratic. But it's not the most powerful weapon because the quadratic formula is a consequence of the method of completing the square, method 4. And so completing the square is more important than the quadratic formula in some ways. But yeah, in addition to completing the square in the quadratic formula, we also know method 5, the Babylonian method, will never fail. So we have 3 methods that won't ever fail. So we have some cool approaches. I'm not a huge fan of using the quadratic formula to solve quadratics because it's kind of like mind-numbing, like just like plugging numbers. But you know, sometimes you gotta do that. So here it is. And yeah, other than that, you know, you've seen these examples throughout this video series, so we know the answers to all of them. So you know, I'll write down the answers so that we can just use the quadratic formula and check that, you know, we got the right answer. Other than that, yeah, as a bonus to this video series, I will derive the quadratic formula. And of course, I'll have to use the method of completing the square to derive the quadratic formula. So I'll say more about that in that video. But here, let's get started. I guess we solve this very first one. So this very first one is x squared plus 4x equals 0. And notice we already know the answers to this. It's x equals 0 or x equals -4, right? Okay, cool. But let's see what the quadratic formula says. It'd say that x would have to be equal to minus b. I've written down all the a, b, and c's for each of these 4 quadratics. So there. So for this particular one, b is 4. So we'd have to write x equals, using the quadratic formula, minus b, so -4. Plus or minus the square root of. And for memorizing the quadratic formula, there are like songs on YouTube about it, so I guess you can watch those or just like do it. Anyway, square root of what? B squared. So b is 4, so 4 squared is 16. That's right there. Minus, right, 4 times a times c. So 4 times a is 1 and c is 0 in this particular problem. So there we are. And then all of that divided by 2a. So 2 times 1. And so that'd mean we have x equals -4 plus or minus square root of. And then it's 16 minus 4 times 1 times 0 is just 0. So 16 minus 0. But why bother writing 16 minus 0? You could just write 16 inside the square root. Okay, cool. And then all of that divided by 2a. So all of this divided by a is 1 again, so just 2. Got it. So that'd say x equals -4 plus or minus. We know the square root of 16, it's 4. And then all of this divided by 2. So we have 2 answers. X equals -4 plus 4 divided by 2, which is 0 divided by 2, which is just 0. Or we have x equals -4 minus 4 divided by 2, which is -8 divided by 2, which is -4. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So those are the same 2 answers we found. Yeah, in an earlier video. So yeah, we're secure. So let's move on to the next one. I find this method pretty boring, so I'm already like kind of sleepy. But whatever, I'll do it because like some kids need to learn, right? Anyway, the middle guy. So x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals 0. The factoring method says that you could factor this as x minus 3 times x minus 2 equals 0. So like, all right, you could factor this way and it's equal to 0, so it's still equal to 0. Anyway, so now it means x equals 2 or x equals 3, right? So we know the answers. And so therefore, you should not use the quadratic formula on this. Use it on something where the factoring method or the AC method, and the AC method is method 3. So use it where those guys fail, right? Okay. So you shouldn't just my bad. Just try to use the quadratic formula all the time. All right. There are easier options sometimes. So here, the quadratic formula would say x equals minus b, so minus, b is negative 5, so minus minus 5, plus or minus b squared, so negative 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1 times c, which is 6. We're doing this guy, right? Okay. And then all of that, the 6 is inside the square root. I'll just more clear about it like that. And then over 2 times a, but a is 1, so 2 times 1, or just 2. Right, okay. Equals minus minus 5 is just 5, plus or minus, and then we have square root, and then it's square root of what? Negative 5 squared is 25, so we have square root of 25, and then minus 4 times 1 times 6 is 24, so 25 minus 24 inside the square root, all of that divided by 2. But wait, why am I going to write 25 minus 24? I could just write 1. So before dividing, let me just write 1. So square root of 1. Even that seems silly, but I'll do it. To not do too many things at once. Okay. All right, all divided by 2. Got it. And let's get this guy out the way. And so then we have, it still equals x, right? I can write it on the right side, why not? And so we've got 5 plus or minus, square root of 1 is 1, so divided by 2. So we've got 2 answers. We have that x equals 5 plus 1 divided by 2, or x equals 5 minus 1 divided by 2. So in the first case, that's 6 divided by 2, that's 3. In the second case, it's 4 divided by 2, that's 2. And so 3 and 2 were what we said were the answers. I deleted it, but you saw. Okay, cool. This is painful, but I'll do it. So here, right, the factoring method doesn't work, and neither does the AC method, method 3. Neither of those two work on this. So you have to use a quadratic formula, method of completing the square, or the Babylonian method. Now, I already finished the video on the method of completing the square, so we know the answer to this. Using the method of completing the square, we wrote that the answer to x squared, the solutions, that is, plus 4x plus 7 equals 0, right, is x equals negative 2 plus or minus I root 3. So let's see if the quadratic formula also returns these 2 answers. All right, so x equals minus b plus or minus square root of b squared, which is 4 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 7, all divided by 2a. So this is negative 4 plus or minus square root of, and then it's 4 squared is like 16, and then minus 4 times 1 times 7 is minus 28, and we can rewrite that as minus negative 12, right? 16 minus 28 is negative 12, so let's just write negative 12. And then all of this divided by 2. Okay. All right, and now we go, need the space. So, and this is x equals, right? Okay, and so x equals negative 4 plus or minus. Now this guy we need to simplify, and this is how we could do it. We could write square root of negative 12 is same as square root of negative 1, which is I, times square root of 4, which is 2, times square root of 3. And we can do this because the square root rules allow us to do this, and this will help us simplify, right? And obviously, like, negative 1 times 4 times 3 is negative 12, so we're good. All right. Like I said, this is I, this is 2, and root 3 is stuck in the square root. So we could write I to root 3. I times 2 times root 3. And actually, the correct grammar, math grammar, is 2I root 3. So 2I root 3. I'll write that. I abide by math grammar. Okay, all of this divided by 2. Got it. Now we can cancel this 2 so long as we can factor out a 2 from the whole numerator. And lucky for us, we could do that. If we take out a 2 from the numerator, the negative 4 will turn into a negative 2. And then we still have plus or minus. This guy is this guy. And then this 2 won't be there because we factored it out. So it'll just be I root 3. Sorry guys. See, now you see why I use a ruler. So I'm like too picky about my handwriting. A ruler to draw the square root sign, that is. Okay, divided by 2. Now we can do something about this 2 there and this 2 here. And look at what we've got left. We've got left x equals minus 2 plus, minus 2, too eager, plus or minus I root 3. And this fella obviously is that. So we know that our answer is good. Now, guys, I'm debating a little bit about doing the fourth and final example. The answer, which we found using the AC method, the third method, to 2x squared minus 5x plus 3 equals 0. The solutions we know are x equals 1 and x equals 3 halves. But I'm tempted not to do this because I already gave you 3 examples, and maybe the hardest part might be like that you get a square root that you have to simplify, but it won't be a negative square root. It will be a positive square root of, it won't be the square root of a negative number, I should say it correctly. It will be the square root of a positive number when you're doing this. And so, you know how to simplify stuff. Otherwise, like, ask questions in the comments and I'll answer. So this is it for me on our second method, the quadratic formula. And like I said, as a bonus to this video series, I will derive the quadratic formula using the method of completing the square. So in order for you to understand what happens in the bonus, the derivation of the quadratic formula, you should first watch method 4, the method of completing the square. All right, cool. Take care.